Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. The Northwest Territories Power Corporation has applied to increase electricity rates by nearly 18%. That is in addition to an increase of 7.1% that went into effect in July. The Power Corporation says it expects the rate increases will be phased in over the next year. The Public Utilities Board will decide on the timing and the final rate increase. The minister responsible for NTPC says the government recognizes the financial pressures on residents as the cost of living continues to rise. Caroline Wozniak says the rate application reflects, quote, unavoidable challenges like extreme low water levels and volatile fuel prices. The rate hike application was a hot topic in the NWT Legislative Assembly today. In her minister's statement, Wozniak said the structure of the territory's electricity systems is challenging, particularly because it's not connected to the North American grid system like most jurisdictions in Canada. MLA Karen Testart asked Wozniak to explain what the government is doing to address its infrastructure issues.
What is the plan to solve this structural problem? If we never connect to the grid, we're never going to solve this. This is an unsustainable power system, and it's breaking the backs of Northerners at a time when they can't afford to pay a penny more. So what is the minister, I would say, Minister of Infrastructure's plan, or maybe Power Corporation, to solve this challenge and connect us to the grid?
We need to increase the transmission connections across the Northwest Territories. We need to not have 20-some individual microgrids, not have two disconnected hydro systems north and south of the lake. So, Mr. Speaker, it is certainly our hope that, again, in this capital budget, we are hoping to get to a place where we can connect the communities of Kakiza and Fort Providence into the southern hydro grid, hoping to advance work with the Clecho government to see the Wati hydro project connected into the northern grid, and also hoping to see within this capital project advancement of the Tultson project, which would connect those two grids. Mr. Speaker, Tultson expansion also includes at Phase 3 looking to go south and to connect us into the grid, in the North American energy grid. Mr. Speaker, it is somewhere between $700,000 and $1.2 million per kilometre to construct transmission lines. So building our lines south, given the distance we would have to cover to connect, certainly wouldn't solve the problem by itself. If we can interconnect ourselves, we would be able to use surplus energy from the southern Tulsa system up to the north, and to have redundancy in the north so that communities can move power between them. And then last but not least, Mr. Speaker, fixing a lot of the power policy systems that we have, which would be in concert with the Public Utilities Board, so that we can do things like increase our independent power producers in small communities so that they can be selling back, improve net metering so that individual residents can be actually relying on solar but not taking from the grid in a way that it makes it dysfunctional. A whole suite of these kinds of changes can also add to our overall resiliency and change the way that we are delivering electricity in the north. Thank you.
Wozniak says NTPC is working to keep rates as low as possible. She says if the GNWT hadn't provided relief for low water levels and made strategic investments, the proposed rate increase would be nearly double. The Northwest Territories' health care deficit is expected to grow to more than $350 million this year. The Territory says this is due in part to staff recruitment and retention, higher prices for equipment, and adding new services without the required funding. The GNWT set up a team to tackle the rising costs. It's called the Healthcare System Sustainability Unit. The Associate Deputy Minister of that unit and the NWT's Premier explain why they think it's necessary.
We certainly want to create a more sustainable healthcare system. The growth in healthcare has exceeded our level of affordability. So we do need to lessen the slope in those expenditure growths and look for different ways to do business. And maybe there's options with virtual care. There's a lot of technological options out there for us to do things differently. So we're really looking at all of this, and it's not just within the healthcare side of it. We're also looking at the social services umbrella as well. So again, we're going to want to bring in the employees and some of that clinical expertise into the conversation to see how we can do things differently going forward.
And I'll just jump in here. So part of the issue is that the healthcare system has just been overwhelmed across Canada, and especially since COVID, and we've seen it. And people are sicker, services are more expensive. There's a lot of issues, and the folks in the healthcare system are busy working. They're busy doing the day-to-day operations, and when we have tried to put money into the system to do this type of sustainability work, that inevitably just gets absorbed into the system in the day-to-day operations because that's what they're focused on. So what this unit is going to be doing is what ideally would be happening within the department at all times, in all departments, really getting an understanding of what the department is doing, what the health authority is doing, and whether or not we need to make changes in what they're doing. So that analysis really hasn't been done.
Simpson says eventually the unit will make recommendations. The new 9-person team will operate until 2028. Its yearly budget is $2 million. Of the 14 bills that were supposed to be discussed during the current sitting of the Nunavut Legislative Assembly, 2 have already been removed. The CBC's TJ Deer explains what happened.
The first bill to be removed dealt with changes to Nunavut's privacy legislation. Nunavut Premier PJ Akiahok brought forward a motion to remove it from the order table.
Whereas it has been determined that Bill 59 may have unintended consequences of the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner and may impact the relationship between the Commissioner and the Government of Nunavut.
Akiahok explained the government's reasoning.
There are many needed amendments within this legislation, and rescinding our motion will allow us to remove the parts of the bill that need further review.
All MLAs present voted in favor, removing the bill from the list of bills to be discussed. But when it came to a bill to make changes to the Vital Statistics Act, there was disagreement. Joe Savikatuk is the chair of the Standing Committee on Legislation. He says although they don't oppose changes to modernize laws, the Minister of Health has been speaking with them about further changes to the bill.
The Minister's correspondence indicates that the legislation is still under development. Bringing the bill forward at this time seems rushed.
But Health Minister John Main explained why the department wants to bring it forward.
The current Vital Statistics Act is potentially at odds with the Human Rights Act, and it doesn't properly reflect provisions of the Divorce Act. And it also doesn't properly reflect provisions of Nunavut laws relating to adoptions, Mr. Speaker.
This vote was split among MLAs. All 7 cabinet ministers present voted to send the bill to committee, but the remaining 10 MLAs present voted to defeat the bill. Both bills will now be changed before being brought forward again. TJ Deer, CBC News, Iqaluit.
People living in Delaunay NWT are being told to boil their drinking water for at least 1 minute before using it. The notice came late this afternoon from the territory's chief environmental health officer. It's because of higher than normal turbidity in the water, which can make it seem muddy. The notice states residents should boil any water used for drinking, preparing food or beverages, making ice cubes or baby formula, and for washing produce. People can bathe in tap water, but they should avoid getting it in their mouths. Water that is bottled, distilled, or put through reverse osmosis is safe to drink. Using something like a Brita water filter, though, won't disinfect the water and shouldn't be used while a boil water advisory is in place. The NWT government says this is a precautionary move and no one has reported being sick from the water. The dispute over the Gwich'in Tribal Council Grand Chief election drew a lot of people to an NWT Supreme Court hearing yesterday. Ken Kikavichik and Sonny Blake squared off in the election in August. After Blake won by 89 votes, Kikavichik appealed the results. His lawyers say the court shouldn't interfere in the Tribal Council's internal process and let the re-election go ahead. The CBC's Nadir Hashmi has that story.
In September, Blake brought forward an application to the Supreme Court to pause the Gwich'in Tribal Council or GTC's re-election. This week, Blake's lawyers asked the court to uphold the election results and declare Blake as Grand Chief. Kikavichik, who had been Grand Chief since 2020, has made several allegations against Blake and his supporters, including defamatory Facebook posts and undeclared election expenses. Though an election committee declared the results valid, the GTC board overturned that decision and called for a re-election. Blake's lawyers said board members did not exercise their powers in good faith, and that the vice chair is a friend of Kikavichik and supported him during the campaign period. Some Facebook posts by Blake's supporters were also presented in court. Lawyers say the language used in the post against Kikavicic was defamatory and had an impact on the election, with messages like, quote, vote for change and we need a leader to be community driven and not divide and conquer. Blake's lawyers say these were just political speeches and it was extraordinary for the GTC to translate them as criticism, and said Kikavicic was aware of the messages but never complained until he lost the election. While Kikavicic's lawyers argued in court that Blake hasn't followed the process and he has leapfrogged the election committee, the GTC board, and came to court. In the election, the lawyers say Blake also clearly violated election rules by not properly declaring his expenses on time. Justice Danny Pichet questioned Blake's lawyers that an existing GTC bylaw does give the board the final say in election results. Pichet also raised concerns if Kikavicic's allegations warrant a new election. She says that move by the GTC would be a very serious decision. The court will now review all the evidence and issue a ruling in the next few weeks. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
4 companies have agreed to a compensation deal over the death of a gold mine worker in Nunavut-Skitikmeot region. Vincent Crow was clearing snow from an ice road in 2022 near Bathurst Inlet when his bulldozer plunged into the sea ice. He was working for a contractor at the time. The Workers' Safety and Compensation Commission originally filed 10 charges under safety legislation. The 4 companies reached an agreement that will see $300,000 go towards training initiatives around work on ice roads. The city of Whitehorse has responded to a proposed class action lawsuit over accessibility. It's asking for the case to be thrown out. Jackie Hong has more.
In a statement of defense filed this week, the city denies any wrongdoing. That's in response to a lawsuit launched by 2 residents with physical disabilities. They allege the city has failed to ensure that sidewalks, parking spaces, and transit stops are accessible. The alleged failures include little to no enforcement of the snow and ice removal rules, resulting in conditions that make it impossible for people with mobility challenges to get around. The plaintiffs are trying to get the lawsuit certified as a class action. The class would be anyone who would have qualified for an accessible parking permit since September 2018. The city, in response, says the lawsuit has no merit. Among other things, it argues that accessible parking spots are not required to be barrier-free. It also says its snow and ice policy is intended to provide, quote, the greatest benefit to the majority of the traveling public and has been properly enforced. The case has yet to go before a judge. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Whitehorse has been walloped with winter this week. Upwards of 20 centimeters of snow fell Tuesday night. Snowboarders and skiers, though, are salivating at the prospects of the city's ski hill opening early. Mount Sima's general manager says the chances of that happening are unlikely, but possible if the snow continues.
Well, yes and no. We definitely have like our scheduled opening day for the public. We have also our scheduled opening day for athletes that are coming here, pre-season that we usually do. That's what we've been working towards. All of our scheduling is based on those dates, and then we have to get employees up to speed and lift operators and all those kind of things. So a lot of those things are kind of set hard. That being said, as a team internally, we are definitely looking at some options if this snow continues, and if we continue to make snow at the rate that we are right now, things could change. So stay tuned.
Normally, Mount Sima opens to the public in early December. The hill is set to host a number of national caliber athletes in November for several preseason training events. Some breaking news now from the NWT Legislative Assembly. NWT MLAs are talking about how to vote for the proposed capital budget. This has been a divisive budget, with some NWT MLAs saying they may not support it. Natalie Pressman has been following the Legislative Assembly. She joins me now live with more. So, Natalie, This budget is not something everyone agreed on. We're kind of running out of time. So what were they discussing just moments ago before you came into the studio?
Yeah, well, like you said, it's been a divisive one. And, you know, last week members tabled a statement saying that without major changes, they wouldn't be supporting this budget, without major changes to housing and healthcare in particular. And so that's what they were talking about tonight when they were talking about which way they were going to vote. You know, some members acknowledged that some of the things they're asking for are operational changes, and of course this is the capital budget, and so things like, you know, staffing and healthcare, that's not going to be addressed in this budget, but housing, you know, that could be. And so some of the members were saying, you know, they just didn't see enough movement on those priorities. But other members said, you know, they've had good conversations with cabinet, and there are other projects in this capital budget that they do want to support. You know, Jane Whalen Armstrong, the member for Montfouille, she talked about the Frank Channel Bridge. That's one, it's by Bechico, and it's been needing upgrades for a really long time. And so she said that's one that we really need to see progress on. The finance minister spoke. She said that you know, there's lots of projects in here that are a priority, and it's really difficult to allocate these resources when everything needs more money and everything is a priority and everything, you know, needs to be upgraded or built, and it needs to be done sort of right now.
Okay, so that was the conversation happening as we speak, right? How is it likely, do you think, that they will vote on the budget tonight? We're running out of time for this legislative sitting, but as you and I talked about earlier this week, there's no set date when they absolutely have to vote for the budget. So what do you think is going to happen next?
Well, the way that they're speaking, it seems like they could vote on it tonight. Like you said, there's no deadline. Tomorrow is the last day of this fall session, and so if they don't vote tonight or tomorrow, then it will be pushed off to February when they have their next session, and that would mean that they would be more delayed on the projects that are in this budget, you know, things they really are saying they need to get moving on: building, roads, highways, energy projects, all these infrastructure projects in this plan. And so if they do delay the vote by a couple months, then all those things would be pushed back as well.
Okay, thanks for your reporting, Natalie. I'll let you go so you can keep tuning in and seeing what's going to happen.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm so happy to have these prosthetic legs. I wear them every day so I can do all the things I love to do. I like to hike, skate, and do gymnastics. Because of your donations, Ramps is able to give me these devices. When you donate, you help kids like me. Thank you.
This is a proposed corridor for multiple pipeline projects.
You're crossing our territory on two ends of your pipeline. Who gave you permission?
Pipelines break of the pipelines would destroy the water and everything in it.
They got to come through us first.
This is an immediate evacuation order for all Coastal GasLink employees. I feel like we are at war. It's just all been building up to this point.
Yenta on The Passionate Eye. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Release him.
Why?
Well, I would say it's extremely bad form to arrest your new boss.
This man is actually in my custody.
What did he do?
Well,
Did you hear that? I'm being charged with,
This ranch isn't going down. Not on my watch.
If the car comes with the deal, I'm in.
Cheers, dragons!
I look forward to fighting you on many a deal.
And we look forward to beating you.
Dragon's Den. Watch free on CBC Gem.
The question is,
and I'm just going to ask,
I want to ask you, but
why is this such a big deal? What does the science say?
what was their reaction?
What are we talking about here?
Who told you?
so to be clear, what is the actual story there?
I think we can explain.
The Northwest Territories wildfire season may not have seemed as dramatic as last year's, but it still burned a considerable amount of land. As the seasons change, the CBC's Leanie Lambrink takes a look at the fire season that is now in the rearview mirror.
1.7 million hectares of land burned in the NWT this past year. That's the third worst fire season going back 2 decades, behind 2023 and 2014.
The fire season this year was, I could describe it as highly active in terms of the amount of area burned. Certainly, we saw a number of large fires this year. Certainly, we did see some communities face some potential or actual serious challenges as they related to the wildfire season.
Fort Liard, Edzo, Little Buffalo River near Fort Resolution, and Delaney were all put on evacuation notices this year. Only one community, Fort Good Hope, was actually ordered to evacuate. It was while fighting that fire that helicopter pilot Tom Frith died. This past summer wasn't the hottest the NWT has ever experienced, but a meteorologist says it was still hot and dry for much of the territory.
Especially through central and southern portions of the Northwest Territories, which is really a continuation of drought conditions that we've seen in that area over the last couple of years.
What drought does is it encourages fires to burn hotter, more intensely, and really be sticky in there, because when you have a high level of drought, it really burns deep into those organic layers into the soil, and it makes containment really difficult.
Westwick says he's proud of the work fire crews did this year. Heading into the winter, he's keeping an eye out for a La Nina weather pattern. The weather pattern could bring more precipitation and cooler temperatures. That might make firefighting easier this year. Leanie Lambrink, CBC News, Yellowknife.
There's a new business conference to promote trade across Inuit Nunangat. The Baffin Regional Chamber of Commerce and Mekivik are launching the Exarnate Trade Show and Conference. Previously, the Chamber hosted a similar show under the name Northern Lights. That was canceled because some Inuit groups did not agree with Nunatuavut Community Council's participation. This new event will, again, showcase culture from across Inuit Nunangat and bring business leaders together to talk about growth in the Arctic.
One of the major issues and challenges we have is a lack of human resources. And I think events like this, bringing people together to talk about those challenges and look at lessons learned, can help advance everybody's future.
The event will take place at Ottawa's Rogers Centre in February. Yukon University has joined an exclusive club. It's now a member of Universities Canada. The organization advocates for post-secondary education, and member schools must meet strict criteria to join. The Yukon University president says it's a big step for her school.
This is the voice that is called upon to influence federal budget decisions, contribute perspectives on federal budget decisions, federal policy changes, and priorities that universities are contributing perspective and priority to crucial conversations in the nation right now. Things like climate change, Indigenous education, reconciliation.
Yukon University is the 97th school to join Universities Canada. It wouldn't be Halloween without some healthy costume competition, from scariest to funniest, group costumes to homemade creations. The CBC's Alistair McCready visited Yellowknife's Sir John Franklin High School to check out the contenders.
Lorax! I think we got a winner with the Lorax! Bring the prizes up, Mix McShane. My name is Dean McGinnis. I'm the principal at Sir John Franklin High School, and we're here celebrating Halloween. Pizza line is dwindling down. All costumes, please come in front of the main stage. We have some candy.
You get some candy. You get some candy.
Free candy, people, free candy. We got a bunch of kids dressed up. We did a bunch of contests in different categories just to get the spirit of the crazy special day, yet still trying to navigate to do a school day. So I think we're going to have a 5-way tie for the scariest costume. Do we have a little prize for these guys? Come and bring it up and give it to them. Little sweet treats for our scary costumes.
My name's Leah. And I'm Caitlin. And we are members of Sir John's Student Council, and we put on the costume contest today.
Okay, who are we voting for? Are we voting for? I can't hear who? Who? Let's hear it up. Did you say holes? Is that what you just said?
So we had scariest costume, group costumes, funniest costume, teacher costumes, and then most original costume.
Some of the group ideas is great. Seeing the kids all dress up as golfers, or all dressed up as scary doctors from the future, that's really neat because then they're trying to be a little creative. It's not just buying something off Amazon. It's a little more of the thought into that. So it's great to see the creativity.
I'm the Lorax.
Lorax!
I'm
Luffy?
Luffy from One Piece. I crocheted my whole costume.
Oh my God, she did. It's all crocheted. That is totally impressive. The kids love to celebrate it in school because it's their opportunity. The kids in high school, they're not necessarily going trick-or-treating door to door. So this is their time to dress up and have fun with it. A lot of the kids are going to be busy this weekend starting right after school playing in the volleyball tournament. So this is really their Halloween day. Batman's our winner! For all you people who dressed up, thanks for participating. This is great. For all you people that didn't, it's Halloween. That's what we do.
Northbeat for this Halloween evening. A note for our viewers in Tuktoyaktuk, be very careful trick-or-treating tonight. There is a polar bear roaming around the community. The mayor says there will be patrols, but be extra aware of your surroundings when you're filling those loot bags. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. We leave you with more spooktacular costumes from Sir John Franklin High School in Yellowknife. Happy Halloween!